All right, for the second part, following up on this network stuff. So once you have your network mapping done, it's really nice because then you know what you have. Along with your network mapping, when you get into your device, you can see what devices are actually connected to this device. I would recommend taking a screenshot of that, storing it away. Goes back to knowing what you have connected. Maybe someone just connected to your Wi-Fi. Have that guy that came in, worked on something. You might want to know who's connected. Goes back to legality. If that person who connected to your network does something illegal on your network, on your IP address that's going out to your internet provider, and I wouldn't say they stupidly get caught, but they might do something that they know they're going to get caught. Like attack a government server. Try to do something silly that you shouldn't do. Well, guess what? It's now on your IP address that you will be the one that they will come talk to. In that point, you would have to know what you have connected. That's why I'm saying there's legalities. I've not heard any scenarios or situations of this being public, but I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. These people that went online, posted these photos of what they were doing on these events and all of this stuff, that's how they tracked them back. They figured out what IP address it was posted from and all this stuff, and they go out and find out who these people are. This isn't a secret. The record industry was using this years and years ago, and there was a bunch of hoopla over it because some IP addresses aren't fixed. They're static. When you reconnect your router, they get another IP address. So then it's up to your ISP, the one you get your internet provider, to prove that your modem was connected at that time. So like I said, there's legality stuff. I don't want to get into all that, but want to make sure that as a home user you're aware of this device. Got into it on the last video about the physical security of your equipment. Having it locked away, having it secure. Mentioned at the hospital the rack that they had mounted to the wall where the computer was actually locked in, strapped in, where you can't just walk out with it. That was a very unique, nice thing that they had. Same thing I would recommend on that computer is knowing firmware, all your latest software you have a list. Print it out. Do your homework. There's software out there. Windows, if you go into your programs, go like in your install list, do a screenshot. Secondary thing with Windows 10 is now you have apps. That's in your start bar, the little gear, it'll have apps. It'll have a list of programs there. Those are valuable for you to know what's in your computer. Not to mention, you may want to remove some of that junk. Not to mention, goes back to troubleshooting. If you have these things documented and you start having problems, you might have software conflicts, you might have other things due to certain apps, certain software that might be installed that you really don't know is installed. So it goes back to troubleshooting. But for the network security, of course, you want to make sure you have your login. You want to make sure you have an admin login. You want to make sure your everyday user is not admin. One of the other features you may want to do, I know a lot of people don't, They have one user login that's admin, and that's it. You really need to change that. You may even want to do a login for each user. Why is that important? Because let's say this is one of the issues I run into a lot. You run a virus scan. You run the virus scan from admin so it can run all the users. And they keep saying, this thing keeps getting infected and I don't know who's doing it and I don't know what's going on. When you run that admin, it's going to tell you that Daddy at his IE Explorer temporary file and what temporary file was infected. Or it'll say Junior, or it'll say Kelly, Kate, Bob, Frank. You know, it'll give you the name of who it is, what user account that is tied to. Then you know who's doing what. That's a helpful piece of troubleshooting. In a business environment, it's really crucial to do that, because if you have someone who gets fired, you can disable their account or change their password. And if you change their password, they can't get in, but the admin has access to everything in that account. Not to mention you have that username name and password in case you need to retrieve something for your business that may be needed. Could be a guest file, could be anything, personal notes on a guest, anything that might be useful. If you have 6 people using one account, it's going to make it harder for you to find the information you're going to need, because now you have 6 people's data on there. And then you might have people overwriting people's data because they're adding to it and they're changing things, and where you might want these separate. That's one of the key reasons there's user accounts. But there's also the domain accounts, there's local accounts, there's a lot of different things when you get into a business that you can do. But I just want to go through the basics, because no matter if it's a domain account or a user account, it's still a strong security. Only difference is in a domain account, you can implement better and stronger securities. But that's not relevant for this. This is basically, what securities should you take? These are some of the factors I wanted to bring out. And I know it's really tough to do a video on some of this stuff and to keep it short. Because I can't keep it short, because I want to really explain it so that you guys can all understand it. If you want a nice, short, little, simple video, there's a lot of other people out doing those. But that's the problem I have, is I follow them, I understand them, but then how do you relate this to someone else? I can't tell them, hey, just go check this out, because the level of how it's explained is a lot shorter, condensed, where I can get it. Probably people don't, because they don't realize a lot of these little factors that come into play. So that's why I say this is a business grade. I mentioned it before in the last video. It has firewall, it has other things. One of the other features it has, a lot of them do now have, is a guest Wi-Fi. There's a lot of features out there. There's a lot of features that'll probably still come. So I can't cover everything, but I want to cover the basics. I want to make sure that people understand the network security side of the physical. I'm calling this the physical security. This is not your VPN. This is not your firewall settings. This is not your port settings. All of those are a whole nother security. Your encryption levels, there's a whole nother level of security. That's probably what most people think of when you talk about security. having the actual physical devices and knowing what your devices actually are is a form of security that you need to know. That is one thing I don't see a lot of people talk about, because they don't think of this scenario of what if someone comes in and adds to your network, or what if someone does this or someone does that. With the way everything went this last year or so, with all these things that have gone on, has really brought me back to this point of the physical security. That someone cannot just take something. If you have external storage devices hooked up to your computer because you do backups and you do other things to them, those are prime targets for some people, because it's got all your data on it. They don't need your server if you have a little data storage device. These were things that you should actually put in a design of your network, so that in case something happens, that you can actually go in and actually physically look to verify all these things are actually there. Other than one day you log into your server and go, oh shit, my backup device ain't working, or it's missing. So I don't know how many people actually have this plan in place. How many people actually still follow this plan? How many people actually still look at what's going on? When you do a backup, when you do your copy of your backup to make sure it's in 2 secure locations, do you look to make sure that that copy of that backup is actually the same size as the original? That is a really good practice to make sure that that copy went well. Just because your computer tells you copy's complete and you're done, it's always best to physically look and make sure that that copy's physically the same. The best way is just to look to see if the size matches, because you don't want to reinstall it, you don't want to restore from it, because then you're running into problems. But that's a tip. I don't know if I mentioned that in the backup video, but that's one factor. So there are best practices you can follow that keep you secure and safe. These are really best practices that I think a lot of people should have. It doesn't cost you anything other than some time, a little place to store it. Worst things worse, you have a fire, you have something that takes place at that business, you may need those records. You might need that information. Because let's say you decide you have a business in one town, you're doing really well, you want to implement this business in another town, you want to open up a second location. If you have that blueprint of how you have everything set up, it makes it easier for you to design your other part. Because the worst thing you want to do is go into that business and do a whole new layout, and then something funky's happening or it's not working right because you didn't follow the layout you had over here that works perfect for you. Because you brought in a company that says, oh yeah, we can do this for you, and you said, yeah, go for it. They put in that layout, and that layout don't quite work for you. You might have some weird issues, you might have, depending on what businesses you do. Security-wise, patches, updates, a lot of different things that can take place. That if that layout works for you, and it's an affordable layout, you might not need to pay a bunch of money to do a different layout. Knowing what you have might come in handy. So I'm hoping this helps some people. I'm hoping people understand what I'm trying to get across. Make sure you have an admin password and username and stuff on your physical devices. Security cameras has username passwords. Make sure you use a unique one. Don't use factory defaults. Make sure you change them. These are part of the things that are with the physical security. So, I hope that covers a lot of the issues I want to cover. I will be doing more videos on security, more issues that I wanted to press. I don't know if anybody's really interested or not, but for now, this is what I wanted to do, so that's what I'm going to do. A few more of these, and then I'll get back to the hardware. Hardware is an important factor for me. I want to do the training, but this is hardware. This is the security side of your hardware. They go together. A lot of these things out there all go together. The other security, your settings, your firewall, all of this type of stuff, portal, that's another side of security. That's your internal, external security. It's not the physical security. That stuff gets really complicated. I don't want to get involved in it and give anybody kind of a false information on that. You'll have to do your homework on that. You're going to really have to do your homework because of ports, IP configs, software, what software uses what ports, and all of that stuff gets really complicated. I can give you a rough summary, but it probably won't do you any good. You want to do your homework. So, I think I'll wrap this up with that. But goes back to a lot of these things are interconnected. Once you build your computer, that's great, ain't it? I can show you how to put a computer together, put the CPU in, put the video card in, and do all this stuff. And then you go online and something malicious happens to it and eats that computer alive. What good is that $5,000 computer you just built? Just want to put it out there. Especially on a gamer. You put a lot of money into that thing. So having your security, having your physical security, having a buffer beyond your settings buffers that you'll have is important. So I hope that is understood. Thank you. If you need more information, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, leave your comments. You have a question, leave it down there. I can answer it for you. Maybe even do another video just on your question. I have no problem doing more videos on any subjects I need to. If you don't understand it, if you need more information, there is no stupid question other than the question you do not ask. This is what I've always been told in school. If you don't ask it, then it's the stupid question. If you have the question, ask it. And don't worry about what anybody else might respond to it. Because they might not understand what you're asking and they might not even really have a clue. But they want to put their 2 cents of information on there. Feel free. Put it down below. I don't want any heckling. I'm trying to educate, trying to help people out. Thank you.